All right, everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with that Phil, and continuing this conversation on signal data. So yesterday, I'll link the video in the description down below here. We talked about the drop rates and kind of pointed you in this direction of why the tier 9 nodes in Cantina are better from a drop rate perspective, are better from a long-term approach. What we want to do today is take that approach and add it to crystals, and then explain, even to an extent, why I have a certain approach that is working for me for signal data, wanting to pass this on to you, and in a sense getting you to think not just about your crystal value, but about the need of your account. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and let's get into this. Let's talk crystal value of signal data, understanding it, and how to properly analyze the value you're getting out of your Cantina farming. All right, so again, we're going to be flipping over to the screen capture here, and we're going to move the fat face out of the way. So again, shout out Agnards for the drop rates. Again, his signal data collection, this is the framework of this. Again, you're going to get slight variations in these, but it's not going to be enough to significantly move the needle. Like, there's enough data collected that we have a good idea of what these drop rates are. So again, using these drop rates, we're going to get into what we call the farming value. Now, your farming value is recognizing that you're going to spend 100 crystals in the Cantina. You're going to get this many pieces of signal data, respectively, whether you're in tier 8 or tier 9, this is what you'll get. And based on the drop rate of those pieces, this is how much you're paying for each one. What you will notice for all of these materials in the 100 crystal refresh, it is cheaper than your shipment cost that we have here, right? It's cheaper than your shipment cost. I think everybody knows that. However, that is only good for a max of 3 refreshes a day, and just to even kind of further illustrate that, it's only good enough for 525 energy a day. After that, you have to get into additional refreshes that cost twice as much as before, to where it's, not worth farming in the Cantina, and it's actually cheaper to buy via shipments. Again, I think everybody knows this. Where this information, I think, really comes to a head is when you factor in double and triple drops. So for double drops, obviously you're getting double the value. So in the base farming cost, you're crushing it. But when you do that double drop and you get into the 200 crystal refreshes, from a crystal perspective and a crystal cost, you are back to base value. You are paying 200 crystals for that energy, but you're getting 2 times the reward. So you doubled your cost, but you're doubling your return. So it's a net zero impact comparative to doing a 100 crystal refresh on a regular day. So sometimes when I hear people say you're an idiot if you don't do the 200 crystal refresh in double drops, I kind of pause and I say, you are costing yourself time. But if you are really strained for crystals, you're not making any more value out of that. And so at that point, it's okay to kind of back off on that piece. In a triple drop scenario, it does make sense to do that 200 crystal refresh, because you're going to be under that base value that you would be spending, 3 times rewards for 2 times the cost. Again, I wanted to illustrate this point because I do think it is important when factoring in those drops. But again, the farming cost, this is not the value of signal data, because the minute, again, I should say this, it is not the value of signal data after you are doing 3 refreshes a day. If you're early in the game, you don't have the crystal income, and you only do 1 or 2 refreshes, don't go to shipments, do extra refreshes. That's going to be your cheapest place. The minute you get all 3 refreshes of your signal data, you can no longer use farming cost of your value, and the true value becomes the shipment prices. Again, we have it broken out in Cantina 8, for the colors, and then Cantina 9, again, based on the drop rates. Here's what you've gotten based on the shipments. using the same thing we did here where we talked about in the drop rates using a 2-week farming cycle to compare the difference between the two, we're going to do the same thing with shipment values. And so again, you can kind of see like tier 9 just completely dwarfing tier 8 in terms of overall crystal value. So again, depending on how you break up the cycles, it will look one way or the other. But I think you can see again the whole point that we're making here. Realistically, you're not just going to be farming blue signal data. As much as we'd love to say that, it doesn't happen. You conceivably cannot do that. So it's still, as much as you want to do this, it's not realistic, right? It's not realistic to do that. You need to get it in other places. And so that's where these farming cycles are kind of proving that point where, you can get still a significant amount of signal data in tier 9, even splitting between these two nodes, comparative to maybe what you'd have to do over here. Up here, you'll notice I kind of skipped over these notes because I wanted to cover this stuff down here first of just how that split looks of that 2-week cycle from a crystal value perspective. And again, I'm not going to go into all the different numbers, but you can just see how crazy it is that, how much better this value is comparative to here and vice versa, right? And again, if you're wondering, this is 8,800 crystal value. This split over here is 11,400. So again, very good benefit to farming tier 9. So understanding tier 9 and how it impacts you as a player is going to be very, very important here. 9B, this is your node with gray and green. If you are a Kraken, where you only need corrupted signal data, you've built this surplus of signal data, you really don't need anything other than the corrupted, you'll want to farm that node. Because in terms of the return it will give you for the corrupted signal data, that is your best place. So if all you need is corrupted signal data, farm 9B. 9D, this is kind of a little bit, but for those whales who you don't need a lot of green signal data, you're primarily in that I need blue and I need corrupted, you go here. The difference being, and again, Kraken versus whale, but you get the point we're getting after there. If you're spending so much money in this game that the only thing that's stopping you is purple signal data, go to 9B, which is maybe a handful of people in this game. But if you're a whale, you're spending a significant amount of money in the game, even thinking about like the era levels, if you don't need green signal data all that much, you don't need gray signal data all that much, farming 9D, you're still getting a significant amount of blue signal data, but you're also getting the gray, which you can transition to corrupted. 9F, this is the node that I think most of us in the game will be farming. While the crystal value return is arguably is the worst based on the drop rates we have entered, they're all still relatively the same. But this is the best value based on need. And notice I have need in all caps. What I am saying here when I talk about need is that we go back to this tab here. You need green and blue in far greater quantities than you do gray. So because you have this massive need for those two colors, the crystal cost sort of becomes the crystal value. It's not necessarily irrelevant, but like trying to maximize your return on crystals only makes sense when you're getting what you actually need, right? Like if you needed corrupted signal data, you want to farm 9B because you're getting two pieces that have the best conversion rate. If you need corrupted and you need blue, then it's better to farm 9D because gray and green end up being the same value for corrupted, right? In terms of like you break it down, you need the same amount of each. You need the same crystal value in each one. So whichever node gives you more of that piece, that's what you want, and that's where 9D comes in. 9F, if you need green, you need blue, then yeah, farm there, right? That's what we're trying to show here in this little note area. Now, I had this hidden when we talked about drop rates the other day. If you notice, I added a crystal rebate out here. Recognizing that your era levels, depending on where you take characters to, you will get a rebate of crystals based on the signal data you get. think about that each of these era levels transitions to a relic level. And you're going to get the signal data. You're not going to have to spend the signal data to each applicable era level. So if you're going to 135, you're going all the way up, you are getting a rebate of 58,000 crystals based on the signal data that you don't have to equip. Obviously, you spent more than 58,000 crystals on those characters. You spent real money, but you're getting a rebate. You're not, that's, if you think of it as you spent the raw crystals, now you have 58,000 more crystals that you could invest into other things because you don't have to spend it on signal data. So again, it's not a return. This is not savings. It's kind of almost gifted back to you, or value that you're getting because you did this. And I'm breaking it down into the crystals just for the signal data. We're not counting the relic materials, which could also factor in pretty heavily depending on where you are in the game. And again, that goes all the way to, this is based on 7 characters, by the way. I should mention that it's based on all 7 characters in the era. So if you can get everybody to this level, you get this, here, here, here. Obviously, the higher up you go, the more value you're going to end up getting as a rebate, right? And again, that's one of those buzzwords Agnards and I love to use. Now, when we talk about other locations, this is a concept that, give me one sec here. Had to answer a text. So this here, again, you don't want to read necessarily too much into this, other than there's other locations you can get some colors of signal data here for varying currencies. What I did was just broke out, all right, for example, get 2 versus get 3. You're basically valuing these at the same crystal cost. Like the shipment value, you're getting more shipment value here, but you're spending you're spending more currency. And get 3 is a lot more valuable than get 2. So this is why I've not bought the green signal data with get 3, is because I value this significantly more than I do Guild Event Currency 2. But I buy this all the time. I don't buy this. One sec, let me let my dog's in. Sorry, guys. If anybody ever wonders why I never get good content out, life is always busy. So then I have your episode currency. And again, you're kind of seeing here, they basically equal out to the same thing, that you're getting just as much crystal value here as you are here. I buy both of these things. I don't buy the corrupted for Mark III raid currency. I think this is a ridiculous value comparative to other things you can get. This shipment value, in case anybody's wondering, this is again tried and true from Agnards. I've done this math. It's the cost of salvaging gray and green signal data to get one piece of corrupted. It comes out to 362.5 for both colors. With your conquest currency, again, roughly the same, a little bit better in green than blue, but again, you need more blue signal data, so it's easier to stomach that. I normally would buy blue. So we have this shipments tab finally, right? And again, this is driving a lot of the values here, but the big thing that we always love to talk about, I talk about this all the time, it's my favorite pack, is the signal data cash pack. Recognizing, as we've talked through this, your farming values, this becomes irrelevant after you are maxing your refreshes, right? You do those 3 refreshes, it doesn't matter. You're gonna use the shipment cost anyway, right? Like if you want more signal data on a regular day, after you do your 3 refreshes, the next most economical place is to buy it via shipments. So if you know every, other week or however often that this pack is going to be available in the store, it's a must buy. The pack costs 1,500 crystals. The shipment value of guaranteed signal data, right? You get, no matter what, 25 flawed, 25 blue, 25 green, 25 gray. You get those 3 things. You do the math for those, pieces and the shards, or the crystal cost. You're getting a value of 1625. So you're saving 126 crystals right off the bat. Then you could get the signal data overflow or anything else. So anything else you get on top of this is bonus, right? Like you would be, again, you get the overflow, you're making out like a bandit. You're getting the Omicrons or whatever. You could be making out like a bandit here regardless. It's just how much more of a bandit are you making out as because of the drop of what this pack gives you. That's why it's a must purchase, is because no matter what, you're saving money to the next most economical choice for signal data. Because you can't rely on, you're not going to get double drops often enough that you should be planning for it. You're not going to get triple drops often enough that you should be planning, every so often, every couple, every month you're going to get something like this. It doesn't work that way. Which is why that signal data cash pack is so important, is because it's going to come around often enough, then you'll want to buy it. So that is the, again, showing another reason why that math works. So I hope this spreadsheet and this little series we did helps you kind of frame in your head the value that signal data has and where you want to farm it. And that's kind of where I brought up this based on need, that if you are somebody like myself, where you're kind of falling into this point where you don't need a lot of blue signal data, you don't need a lot of gray signal data, you really need the green and the blue, you're probably ever only going to farm in 9F. This is the only place you're going to end up farming, because you can get enough of your gray signal data from these other locations that it's not a big enough deal. And that any of that leftover green signal data that you have, any leftover gray, can go towards your corrupted, and you can continue to use the blue for everything else. That's the video, folks. Again, I really hope this helps you on your journey. I hope you guys appreciated that we're intelligent, we used our brains. Appreciate Egnard's big shout out for letting me use the drop rate stuff. I know he's worked really hard to get that. Let me know what you guys think down below. I really do hope this helps. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.